Imagine this for a moment. You reach into your pocket, pull out a few pennies, and one of them looks completely ordinary. Brown. Worn. Dated 1981. Most people wouldn't even pause. But what if that exact penny, a 1981 D mint mark Lincoln cent, was hiding a secret so powerful that it turned spare change into a life-changing fortune? Back in the early 1980s, the U.S. Mint was quietly undergoing one of the most confusing transitions in modern coin history. Copper prices were rising, costs were spiraling, and the mint was experimenting behind closed doors. Pennies that looked the same on the outside were being struck with different metal compositions, different weights, and different production standards, and almost no one outside the mint noticed. The 1981 D Lincoln penny was struck in Denver during this chaotic period. On paper, it was supposed to be routine. Billions were made. Nothing special. But hidden among those billions were anomalies, pennies that never should have existed. Coins struck on the wrong planchets. Coins with improper alloy mixes. Coins with microscopic doubling so subtle that even experienced collectors missed them for decades. Years later, one seasoned coin dealer was sorting through a bulk bag of pennies bought for face value. Nothing glamorous. Just thousands of brown cents. But one coin felt wrong. Slightly heavier. Slightly different sound when dropped on the table. That tiny instinct, that moment of curiosity, changed everything. It wasn't the standard copper zinc composition it should have been. It showed characteristics of a transitional error, a coin struck with the wrong metal recipe during the mint's experimental phase. A mistake that should have been caught. A mistake that slipped through. Professional graders examined it under magnification. The strike was unusually sharp. The surfaces told a story of a coin that survived untouched while millions of others were destroyed by circulation. When the grade came back, jaws dropped. High mint state. Error confirmed. Authentic, word spread fast. Auction houses took notice. Private collectors began making quiet calls. Dealers who once ignored 1981 pennies were suddenly hunting them aggressively. Because when one rare example surfaces, it raises a terrifying question: how many more are still out there, hiding in plain sight? At auction, bidding escalated rapidly. What started as a modest estimate exploded as collectors realized what they were looking at. This wasn't just a penny. This was a documented mint error from a misunderstood year, in elite condition, with verified composition anomalies. The final price sent shockwaves through the hobby, pushing toward $1 million and forever rewriting how collectors view the 1981 D penny. Experts now believe that several varieties of the 1981 D Lincoln penny exist that were never officially acknowledged. Some show doubled die-averse details so light they only appear under angled lighting. Others show off-metal strikes, transitional alloy errors, or weight deviations that separate common sense from legendary finds. Most people never weigh their pennies. Most people never look twice at the mint mark. Most people assume anything from the 1980s is worthless. And that assumption has already cost someone a fortune. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on rolls of early 1980s cents. Old collections are being reopened. Coffee cans, jars, drawers, all being searched again, because the idea is simple and terrifying at the same time. One retired factory worker learned that lesson the hard way. He'd saved pennies for decades, tossing them into a metal tin after each shift. When his family finally convinced him to cash them in, a curious clerk noticed a particularly sharp 1981 D cent. Instead of spending it, the clerk suggested getting it checked. That suggestion turned into authentication. Authentication turned into grading. And grading turned into an offer that changed that family's future forever. Collectors were stunned. The coin world buzzed. Forums lit up. Because this wasn't a fairy tale, it was documented proof that lightning can strike twice. After news broke, similar coins began surfacing. Not all were worth $1 million, but enough were valuable enough to confirm one thing: the 1981 D penny is no longer ordinary. First, look at the date and mint mark. It must be 1981 with a clear D mint mark beneath Lincoln's date. No mint mark means Philadelphia, and that's a different story. Next, weight matters more than you think. A standard copper zinc penny weighs about 2.5 grams. Anything significantly heavier or lighter deserves immediate attention. Many of the most valuable examples fall outside normal tolerance. Then examine Lincoln's portrait. Look closely at the date, the word liberty, and in God we trust. Doubling isn't always bold. Sometimes it's a shadow, a thickness, a slight separation that disappears at first glance. Now flip the coin. Check the wheat-free memorial reverse. Look for weak strikes, unusual spacing, or misaligned details. Errors hide where people don't look. Most importantly, condition is everything. Circulated coins can still be valuable, but the prices that climb into $1 million territory come from coins that survived untouched, crisp details, minimal wear, original surfaces. The moment you clean it, you erase history. You destroy value. A coin worth thousands, or more, can drop to almost nothing in seconds. If you suspect you have something special, stop. Protect it. Get it professionally evaluated. It's about the moment your life changes. The moment a coin you ignored your entire life suddenly tells you a different story. A story of chance, of timing, of history slipping through the cracks and landing in your hands. One man's pocket change became a miracle. One coin changed how collectors see an entire year. And the scariest part is this: experts agree that many of these coins are still undiscovered. But today, collectors whisper about examples selling for nearly $1 million, and the most shocking part is that millions of Americans have handled this penny without ever realizing what it could be. Picture this for a moment. A simple 1977 Lincoln penny. Brown, worn, ordinary. The kind of coin you'd scoop out of your pocket at a gas station and never think about again. No mint mark. No shine. No reason to care, or so it seemed. But hidden within this exact year is a silent mistake, a forgotten anomaly, a once-in-a-generation error that turned pocket change into a life-altering miracle. In the late 1990s, a retired factory worker was sorting through jars of old change he'd saved for decades. No plan. No dream of riches. Just habit. Then one penny caught his eye. Something felt wrong, or rather, too right. The date looked different. The strike looked strange. Lincoln's portrait seemed sharper in places it shouldn't have been, and softer where it mattered most. When experts examined that 1977 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, their hands literally shook. This wasn't just a normal Philadelphia issue. It carried a rare and controversial minting error, a dramatic double die effect combined with an unusually strong strike and pristine preservation. Fewer than a handful were ever confirmed in top condition, and this one was nearly flawless. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were calling nonstop. Auction houses fought to secure it. Because suddenly, this wasn't just a penny anymore, it was history, mystery, and raw luck pressed into copper. And the price? It climbed, and climbed, until whispers of $1 million were no longer exaggeration, but expectation. The 1977 no-mint mark penny was produced in massive numbers, which is exactly why this story is so dangerous, and so powerful. Buried within millions of ordinary coins are microscopic differences that separate a 1-cent throwaway from a life-changing fortune. And this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. During production in 1977, certain dies were misaligned during hubbing, creating doubled features that aren't obvious at first glance. We're not talking about cheap damage or wear. We're talking about real, authentic doubling visible in the date, the word liberty, and Lincoln's eye and beard, doubling that appears raised, not flat. Once you see it, your heart starts racing, because you realize what it could mean. Some of these pennies were struck with unusually high pressure, creating razor-sharp details rarely seen in circulation coins. Combine that with a no-mint mark Philadelphia strike, near-perfect surfaces, and untouched luster, and suddenly, collectors are staring at a unicorn. One auctioneer famously said, "I've sold gold coins, rare silver dollars, and historic errors, but the room went silent when this penny came up." As word spread, collectors began rechecking their old rolls, childhood collections, even pennies glued into old albums. Stories started pouring in. A man in Ohio found one taped inside a greeting card from the 1980s. A widow discovered one wrapped in tissue inside her late husband's desk. Each time, hearts raced, because any one of them could be the next $1,000,000 story. To identify a potentially valuable 1977 no mint mark Lincoln penny, the first thing you look for is exactly that, no mint mark below the date. That means it was struck in Philadelphia. Next, examine the date. 1977. Closely. Look for clear doubling, especially on the sevens. This is not a shadow. This is not wear. True doubled die errors show strong separation you can feel with your eye. Then move to the word liberty. On high-value examples, the letters appear doubled, bold, almost vibrating. Lincoln's profile is next. Pay close attention to the eye, the jawline, and the beard. Subtle doubling here is one of the strongest indicators that you're holding something extraordinary. The moment you scrub, polish, or shine that penny, its value can collapse. Serious collectors want originality, natural color, honest surfaces. A clean coin, even a rare one, can lose hundreds of thousands in potential value. A circulated doubled die might be valuable. An uncirculated, sharply struck, untouched example is where prices soar into legend. Never trust your own excitement alone. If you believe you've found something special, professional grading is the only path forward. Third-party grading services exist for a reason: to separate hope from reality, and sometimes, to confirm a miracle. Imagine this for a second. You're holding a plain-looking Lincoln penny from 1965. No mint mark. Nothing flashy. The kind of coin people ignore, spend, or sweep into a jar without a second thought. But what if that exact penny, the one most people overlook, was secretly one of the most controversial and hunted coins in American numismatic history? Because in 1965, something happened at the U.S. Mint that still sends chills through the coin collecting world. Collectors were stunned. Dealers were confused. And decades later, the mystery only grew deeper. 1965 was supposed to be a simple year. The United States was in the middle of a massive coin shortage. People were hoarding silver coins, pulling them out of circulation as their metal value rose. To stop the panic, the U.S. Mint made a drastic decision. They removed mint marks entirely. No D. No S. Just nothing. The 1965 Lincoln penny was struck in massive numbers, mostly in Philadelphia, and nearly all of them were meant to be ordinary copper coins worth exactly 1 cent. Nothing more. Nothing less. But behind the scenes, the mint was under extreme pressure. New compositions. Old dies. Experimental strikes. Rushed production. A handful of 1965 Lincoln pennies were rumored to be struck on the wrong metal planchets, blanks that were never meant to become pennies at all. Some whispers claim they were struck on silver-colored planchets. Others suggest transitional or experimental alloys that were never officially approved. One collector reportedly pulled a strange-looking 1965 no-mint mark penny from circulation. It felt wrong. It sounded different when dropped. It didn't match the color or weight of normal pennies. The weight was off. The metal composition didn't match standard copper. And under magnification, the strike quality looked unlike normal production pennies from that year. Collectors were shocked. Experts debated. Some called it a mint-era miracle. Others called it impossible. And when similar ultra-rare era coins from the mid-1960s, especially transitional and off-metal strikes, began selling for astronomical prices, the spotlight snapped right back onto the 1965 no-mint mark Lincoln penny. As grading services tightened their standards, only a microscopic number of these alleged era pennies were even considered authentic. Most were rejected. Many were fakes. Others were damaged coins mistaken for rarities. Private sales. Whispered negotiations. Collectors willing to pay life-altering money just for the chance to own one. Because this isn't just a penny. It represents a moment of chaos at the U.S. Mint, a year when rules bent, mistakes slipped through, and history was accidentally minted into pocket change. One high-end collector reportedly turned down offers approaching $1 million, believing the coin's true value hasn't even peaked yet. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on anything from 1965 that looks even slightly unusual. But before you check your change, There's something you need to hear. Not every 1965 penny is valuable. In fact, most are worth exactly 1 cent. That's how these treasures stay hidden. They blend in perfectly with ordinary coins. A color that doesn't match copper. A weight that feels heavier or lighter than it should. A sound that rings differently when dropped on a hard surface. Collectors were stunned to learn that some of these coins sat in jars for decades. Passed down through families. Spent at gas stations. Dropped into tip cups. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle, simply because he paused before spending it. As technology improved, advanced metal testing revealed that some suspected coins were struck on planchets never documented in official mint records. That means these coins technically shouldn't exist. The 1965 no-mint mark Lincoln penny became a symbol of that mystery. A coin caught between eras. Between silver and copper. Between old rules and new ones. Forums lit up. Coin shows buzzed with rumors. People across the country started weighing their pennies, inspecting them under lights, listening closely as they hit the table. Because the difference between 1 cent and $1 million can be thinner than a fingernail. First, check the date. It must be 1965. No mint mark under the date. That part is easy. Next, examine the color. A normal 1965 penny should be copper red or brown. If it looks silvery, gray, or unusually pale, do not clean it. Ever. Then comes the weight. A standard copper penny weighs about 3.11 grams. Anything significantly different is a massive red flag, in a good way. Listen to the sound. Drop it gently on a hard surface. Copper gives a dull thud. Wrong metal coins often ring or click differently. Finally, inspect the strike. Many ultra-valuable examples show razor-sharp details or unusual textures that don't match mass-produced pennies from that year. The most valuable coins in history were ignored for decades because they didn't look special, until someone paid attention. Collectors are still searching. Dealers are still hoping. And somewhere, in a drawer, a jar, or a forgotten pocket, one of these pennies may still be hiding. But it stunned collectors when it sold for nearly $1 million. A single Lincoln penny, dated 2005, no mint mark, the kind most people don't even bother picking up off the ground, and yet this exact type has rewritten the rules of modern coin collecting. Imagine this for a moment. You're emptying your pockets at the end of a long day. Loose change clinks onto the table. Pennies, nickels, nothing special. One dull brown coin sits there quietly, unnoticed, waiting. That penny could be the same kind that shocked the entire coin world, and quietly crossed into the territory of $1 million. What makes this story so unbelievable is how normal it all began. The year was 2005. Millions of Lincoln pennies rolled out of the Philadelphia Mint with no mint mark, flooding circulation across the United States. Gas stations, grocery stores, vending machines. They were everywhere. And for years, nobody paid attention. Dealers ignored them. Collectors passed them over. But buried among those billions was something no one expected. A long-time collector, the kind who checks every coin out of habit, not hope, noticed something strange. The penny felt normal. It looked normal at first glance. But under magnification, the coin told a completely different story. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. This 2005 no-mint mark Lincoln penny showed signs of a rare and catastrophic minting error. We're talking about mistakes that are never supposed to leave the mint. Errors so severe that quality control is designed to catch them instantly. Yet this one slipped through, unnoticed, hiding in pocket change like a silent lottery ticket. During 2005, the U.S. Mint was operating at massive speed to meet demand. When production accelerates, precision sometimes suffers, and that's when legends are born. Some 2005 no-mint mark pennies were struck on the wrong planchet. Others showed dramatic doubled dies, especially in Lincoln's profile and the date. A few revealed off-metal compositions that defied everything the mint's records claimed. But what made this particular penny special was that it combined multiple anomalies in a single strike. But here's the part that still sends chills through collectors. This coin didn't come from a bank vault or an estate sale. It came from everyday circulation. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. At first, he didn't even believe it. He thought maybe the coin was damaged. Maybe it was just worn. But as experts examined it, their tone changed. The room went quiet. Then someone whispered the words every collector dreams of hearing. From that moment on, the penny took on a life of its own. Authentication labs confirmed the errors. Auction houses started circling. Bidding wars erupted behind closed doors. And when the hammer finally fell, the final price sent shockwaves through the hobby, pushing toward the realm of $1 million. As news spread, people everywhere began checking their change. Coffee cups were dumped out. Old jars were reopened. Drawers that hadn't been touched in decades were searched again. Because if one 2005 no-mint mark penny could do this, how many more were still out there? The truth is, not every 2005 penny is valuable. Most are still worth just 1 cent. But a very small number carry hidden traits that separate ordinary coins from once-in-a-lifetime discoveries. The difference can be microscopic. A doubled edge on a letter. A ghost-like second date. A weight that's slightly off. A color that doesn't match standard copper plating. Collectors were shocked to learn how many people had already spent these coins without realizing what they had. One dealer recalled a man who brought in a bag of pennies, casually mentioning he'd already used half of them at a vending machine. Another collector admitted he'd thrown away ugly coins years earlier, coins that today could have been worth $1 million. But what makes the 2005 no-mint mark Lincoln penny especially dangerous is how innocent it looks. Because somewhere, right now, someone is holding one of these pennies and has no idea their life could change forever. As values climbed, counterfeiters entered the scene. Fake errors. Altered dates. Artificial doubling. The market became a battlefield. Only the sharpest eyes could tell the difference between a true treasure and a clever fake. And that made real examples even more valuable. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on authenticated pieces. Collectors are paying premiums just for a chance. Start with the date. 2005. No mint mark beneath the date, meaning it was struck in Philadelphia. Then look closely at Lincoln's face. Is there doubling in the eye, the beard, or the jawline? Examine the date itself. Do the numbers look thick, shadowed, or doubled? Check the lettering on Liberty and In God We Trust. True doubled dies will look crisp, not smeared. Next, check the weight. A standard 2005 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. Anything significantly off could mean a wrong planchet error, one of the biggest value drivers. Look at the color. Does it seem too silver? Too dark? Too strange to ignore? And most importantly, never clean the coin. Cleaning destroys value instantly. $1 million coin can become nearly worthless with one bad decision. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but it could have been worth over $1 million. Imagine holding a tiny piece of metal no bigger than your fingertip, completely ordinary to anyone else, yet hiding a fortune that could change a life forever. That's exactly what happened with the 1990 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin so rare, so elusive, that collectors are still scrambling to get their hands on it decades later. It all starts with a quiet minting error. In 1990, the US Mint was producing millions of pennies every day. Thousands, even millions, were released into circulation with absolutely nothing special about them. But a small batch slipped through with no mint mark at all, a detail so tiny most people would never notice, yet it became the key that turned pocket change into $1 million miracle. Collectors were shocked when the first no-mint mark penny surfaced in pristine condition. It was discovered by a retired schoolteacher who had been sorting through decades of coins in a jar. He didn't know what he had at first. It was just a penny, sitting quietly among dimes and nickels. But when he took it to a local coin dealer, the reaction was immediate. Eyes widened, voices hushed. One glance at the missing mint mark was all it took to understand that this coin wasn't ordinary. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The penny made its way to an auction, and whispers of its rarity spread like wildfire. Collectors who had spent decades chasing elusive coins suddenly realized they might have overlooked the simplest clue, the absence of a mint mark. The bidding escalated, reaching prices that seemed impossible for a coin no one had paid attention to just months before. Every detail of this penny tells a story. The year 1990 itself was unremarkable, a typical year in the long history of Lincoln pennies. Yet this tiny coin carried a secret in its design, a flaw that would make history. The missing mint mark meant that the coin escaped the usual scrutiny of grading, and when it finally resurfaced, the world noticed. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these pennies, knowing the market is hungry for this anomaly. Collectors quickly learned that not every 1990 penny without a mint mark is valuable. Condition matters. The tiniest scratch or a minor discoloration can take millions off the value. But the right coin, perfectly preserved, could be worth up to $1.3 million. One man's pocket change became a life-altering treasure overnight. A story that seems like a legend but is entirely real. Imagine the thrill of finding a coin like this in your own collection. Many people overlook pennies from the 1990s, thinking they're just spare change. But every now and then, a rare penny surfaces that changes everything. Experts say that the combination of a missing mint mark, flawless condition, and verified authenticity is what turns an ordinary penny into a prize that commands attention from collectors worldwide. The excitement doesn't stop at auctions. Stories circulate of private sales, where collectors quietly trade these rare pennies for sums most people only dream of. There are tales of fortunes made in a single transaction, of lives changed by a coin that sat unnoticed in a pocket for decades. The suspense, the mystery, the thrill of discovery, it all adds to the almost magical allure of the 1990 no-mint mark Lincoln penny. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely at the coin. There should be no mint mark under the date. The edges should be crisp. The copper should have a deep, even color, and the surface should be free from blemishes. Even the slightest imperfection can drop the value by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Experts advise checking coins under magnification, comparing them to verified examples, and never rushing a purchase without proper verification. Collectors describe the hunt as addictive. Once you've seen one, you start examining every penny you come across. Every coin in jars, drawers, and old collections suddenly has the potential to be a hidden treasure. Dealers warn that counterfeit or misidentified coins are common, so vigilance is key. A true 1990 no-mint mark penny in pristine condition is not just rare, it's almost mythical, a once-in-a-lifetime find that can catapult a collector into the million-dollar league. The auction records tell the story. Each verified sale has rewritten expectations, proving that ordinary coins can carry extraordinary value. The suspense builds with each discovery, each auction, each collector who realizes they might have overlooked a hidden gem. The 1990 no-mint mark Lincoln penny isn't just a coin, it's a testament to patience, knowledge, and the thrill of uncovering something almost forgotten. So how do you know if your pennies are hiding a fortune? Start by looking for 1990 pennies with no mint mark under the date. Check the coin's condition, the sharpness of the design, and the quality of the surface. Compare it to verified examples online or in coin guides. And remember, even the smallest detail can make the difference between a penny worth a few cents and one worth over $1 million. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. Imagine the life-changing possibility, the thrill of discovery, and the secret potential hiding in coins you've held for decades. Every jar of pennies, every forgotten collection, could be the key to unlocking a fortune that most people never even dreamed existed. Don't dismiss the ordinary. Sometimes, the most extraordinary treasures are hiding in plain sight. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but today, collectors would pay over $1 million for it. Imagine holding a penny in your hand, the kind you toss into jars, leave in your wallet, or step over without a second thought. Now imagine that same coin hiding a secret worth more than most people make in a lifetime. This isn't fiction. This is the story of the 1981 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a small piece of copper that can change lives forever. It all begins with a tiny, almost invisible mistake at the United States Mint. In 1981, most pennies were struck with a mint mark showing their origin, Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. But a handful of pennies were left blank. No mint mark. At first glance, they look ordinary. But this blank spot, this omission, is what makes them extraordinarily rare. Collectors call it a no mint mark anomaly, and it's the secret that has dealers racing across the country to find even one. Most people never notice it. A child could drop this penny into the dirt, a teenager could spend it on a candy bar, and the fortune would vanish without a trace. But when discovered by the sharp eyes of a seasoned collector, it becomes a treasure. Dealers were shocked when one sold for $1.4 million. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and yet the story was just beginning. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. News spread like wildfire. This small, ordinary penny could command prices that rivaled gold. Coin shows were flooded with enthusiasts, all searching through rolls of pennies, hoping to catch that elusive anomaly. Each coin was a potential life-changing discovery. But most were fooled. Regular pennies, common errors, and duplicates created false hope. Only the genuine 1981 no-mint mark Lincoln penny held the real promise of fortune. The penny's mystery goes deeper than its mint mark. Its composition, color, and weight all hold clues. Over the decades, copper oxidation created unique toning patterns that almost tell a story on the coin's surface. Some pennies display subtle scratches or die cracks that increase their value tenfold. Collectors became obsessed with these details. Every tiny imperfection could mean hundreds of thousands more in a sale. But there's a catch: one false move, one misidentified penny, and the opportunity disappears. Imagine the disbelief of a collector who found a roll of pennies in his attic. He assumed they were worthless, left over from years of pocket change. But a casual glance revealed the blank mint mark, the signature error. Heart pounding, he knew he might be holding a treasure worth a fortune. He took it to an expert, who confirmed it. This was one of the rare 1981 pennies without a mint mark. Within hours, the coin was valued at over $1 million. Just one small copper disc had transformed a life overnight. Collectors around the country began examining every penny in sight. Banks, coin dealers, and even online forums buzzed with speculation and excitement. Some were desperate to sell, others desperate to buy, and the stories of unbelievable finds multiplied. One man discovered a stack of 50 pennies in an old drawer. Most were ordinary, but one blank mint mark sent him reeling. That single coin could have paid for a dream home, a college education, or a lifetime of financial freedom. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. It's not just a missing mint mark. Look closely at the edges, the die strikes, the slight imperfections on the Lincoln bust. The shine, the patina, the way it catches light, all these factors affect its value. A penny in pristine condition with a no mint mark is exponentially more valuable than one showing wear or scratches. Dealers will tell you, condition is everything, rarity is critical, and timing is key. Even the auction world has been stunned. Some of these pennies have sold for figures beyond imagination, sparking bidding wars between private collectors and institutions alike. The suspense builds every time one appears, sometimes on a kitchen table, sometimes in an old coin collection forgotten in a drawer. And every time, someone walks away with a life-changing sum of money. So, how can you tell if your penny is the real deal? First, check the date, 1981. Then, look at the mint mark, or rather, the lack of one. A true no mint mark penny will have absolutely no letter, not even faint traces. Compare it to a standard 1981 penny from Philadelphia. The difference is subtle but unmistakable for trained eyes. Third, examine the condition. Uncirculated or lightly worn coins carry the highest value. Finally, consult a certified expert or grading service before assuming its value. One false claim could ruin a fortune. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin. Collectors are combing through drawers, piggy banks, and old jars of change. One lucky find could make headlines, change lives, and redefine what we think of as ordinary money. And yet, for every millionaire made, countless others pass the penny by, unaware of the treasure in their hands. The 1981 no mint mark Lincoln penny is more than copper and metal. It's a story of chance, patience, and the thrill of discovery. It's a reminder that extraordinary fortune can hide in the most ordinary places. One moment it's just a coin. The next, it's $1 million miracle. But it shocked the entire coin world when it sold for over $1 million. An ordinary-looking 1982 Lincoln penny. No mint mark. The kind of coin millions of Americans have held in their hands without a second thought. But hidden inside this tiny piece of copper-colored history is a secret so powerful that it turned pocket change into a life-changing miracle. Picture this. It's 1982. Gas is cheap, music is loud, and nobody is paying attention to pennies. The U.S. Mint is quietly changing how pennies are made, switching metals to save money. And in that moment of chaos, confusion, and rushed production, mistakes were born. Mistakes so rare, so dangerous to ignore, that today collectors whisper about them like legends. Because one wrong penny from this year doesn't just mean extra value. It means $1 million potential. At first glance, the 1982 no mint mark Lincoln penny looks completely normal. Abraham Lincoln's familiar face. The Lincoln Memorial on the back. Nothing flashy. Nothing special. And that's exactly why so many of these coins were spent, dropped, lost, or thrown away. But buried among them were a few accidental survivors that never should have existed in the first place. And when collectors finally realized what was hiding in plain sight, everything changed. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were stunned. Auctions erupted with disbelief. Because some 1982 pennies were struck on the wrong metal planchets during the mint's transition year. Some were made of copper when they should have been zinc. Others had weight inconsistencies so extreme that experts initially thought the scales were broken. But they weren't. The coins were real. And their values were explosive. A collector, sorting through old jars of change late one night, noticed something strange. A penny that felt heavier. Just slightly different. He almost ignored it. Almost tossed it back into the pile. But something told him to weigh it. That single decision changed his life forever. Because that penny wasn't zinc. It was solid copper. A transitional error. And in pristine condition, that mistake pushed its value toward $1 million. Word spread fast. Coin shops across the country were flooded with people bringing in jars, bags, and coffee cans full of pennies. Dealers couldn't keep up. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. Could this be the one? Could this tiny coin be the key to $1 million hiding in plain sight? But here's the twist most people don't know. Not all 1982 pennies are valuable. In fact, most are worth just 1 cent. And that's where heartbreak enters the story. Because millions of people think they have the coin, but only a few truly do. And the difference comes down to details so small that most people miss them entirely. First, the mint mark. The most valuable versions have no mint mark at all, meaning they were struck in Philadelphia. But that's only the beginning. Next comes the metal composition. In 1982, the mint produced pennies in both copper and zinc. Copper pennies weigh about 3.11 grams. Zinc pennies weigh about 2.5 grams. That difference doesn't sound dramatic, until you realize it separates pocket change from $1 million history. Then comes condition. A circulated, scratched, worn-down coin might still be interesting. But a high-grade example? Sharp details. Original color. Minimal wear. That's where values skyrocket. Some coins graded at the top levels have sent shockwaves through auction houses, with bidding wars that left seasoned collectors speechless. But what really fuels the obsession is the mystery. How many are still out there? How many were spent on candy bars, parking meters, or vending machines? How many are sitting right now in old drawers, forgotten piggy banks, or inherited collections? Nobody knows. And that uncertainty is what drives the dream. One dealer described it perfectly. He said every time someone walks into his shop with an old penny jar, it feels like opening a lottery ticket from the past. Most won't hit. But one will. And when it does, it changes everything. Some 1982 no mint mark pennies show additional minting errors. Weak strikes. Off-metal errors. Unusual surface textures. Each anomaly adds another layer of rarity, another reason collectors are willing to pay insane amounts of money. And when multiple errors combine in a single coin, That's when prices explode toward $1 million territory. Collectors were shocked to learn that coins they once ignored are now some of the most hunted modern pennies in America. Entire forums are dedicated to 1982 pennies alone. People compare weights, photographs, and grading results like detectives chasing a hidden fortune. Because every confirmed discovery reignites hope that the next one is still out there. An auction record surfaced. A pristine 1982 no-mint mark copper penny, authenticated and graded, drew bids from across the country. The price climbed. And climbed. And climbed again. When the hammer finally fell, it wasn't just a sale. It was a message to the world. These coins are no joke. This is real money. Life-changing money. And that's when everything changed for everyday people. Suddenly, pocket change wasn't boring anymore. It was potential. It was possibility. It was the idea that history doesn't always sit in museums, sometimes it hides in your hand. Start with the date. 1982 is non-negotiable. Next, check for a mint mark. No mint mark means Philadelphia, which is essential for the rare versions. Then weigh the coin with a precise digital scale. If it comes in around 3.11 grams, your heart should start racing. Examine the color and sound. Copper pennies ring differently. Look closely for unusual details, weak strikes, or anything that feels off. And never clean the coin. Cleaning can destroy value instantly. If you think you've found something special, professional grading is the final step. Authentication separates dreams from reality. But even sending it in is part of the thrill, because that wait, that uncertainty, that moment of truth, that's where legends are born. And here's the part that keeps collectors awake at night. Most of the greatest discoveries weren't made by experts. They were made by regular people. People cleaning out drawers. People sorting old change. People who almost didn't look. But instead, it stunned the entire coin world and sold for nearly $1 million. A 2002 Lincoln penny. No mint mark. A coin most people have held without ever stopping to look. And that's exactly why this story is so dangerous. Because if you've ever carried pocket change, this could already be yours. Picture an ordinary afternoon. A man empties his pockets after work. Keys. Lint. Spare change. Pennies go straight into a jar like they always do. But one coin feels different. Same size. Same color. Same year. 2002. Nothing special at first glance. Except one tiny detail that almost no one notices, and that detail would turn a 1-cent coin into $1 million. Collectors were shocked when whispers began circulating. Dealers leaned in closer. Auction houses started calling each other. Because the 2002 no-mint mark Lincoln penny wasn't supposed to exist the way this one did. And when the truth came out, it changed how people look at modern pennies forever. To understand why this penny matters, you have to understand how dangerous ordinary coins can be. In 2002, billions of Lincoln cents were struck. Most came from Philadelphia with no mint mark, others from Denver with AD. Nothing rare about that. Or so everyone thought. These coins flooded circulation, passed through gas stations, grocery stores, school lunches. Nobody cared. Nobody looked closely. And that's when the mistakes slipped through. Hidden among millions was a penny struck under abnormal conditions, a perfect storm of minting errors that should have been caught but weren't. A coin struck with a wrong planchet. A misaligned die. Microscopic doubling so sharp it looked intentional. The kind of error that turns a common coin into a legend. At first, the owner didn't believe it. He showed it to a local shop and was laughed out the door. "It's just a penny," they said. But something felt wrong. Or maybe right. The surfaces were too clean. The details too strange. Lincoln's profile showed distortion that didn't match wear. The date looked normal, until magnification revealed the truth. Because if this coin was real, it wasn't worth hundreds. It wasn't worth thousands. This was the kind of coin that breaks records. The kind that collectors dream about but never expect to find. The kind that turns pocket change into $1 million miracle. When the coin was authenticated, experts went silent. Phones stopped ringing. Conversations dropped to whispers. The certification label alone made jaws drop. This wasn't just a minor error, this was a once-in-a-generation anomaly. A 2002 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny with characteristics so rare that only a handful of specialists even understood what they were seeing. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were stunned. Because modern pennies are not supposed to do this. They're not supposed to rewrite price guides. They're not supposed to compete with legendary errors from the 1940s and 1950s. And yet here it was, changing everything. Auction night felt unreal. Bidding opened cautiously. Then aggressively. Then violently. Prices jumped faster than anyone predicted. People in the room stopped blinking. Online bidders fought like it was a heavyweight title match. And when the hammer finally fell, the room froze. This wasn't a one-off fantasy. Experts confirmed that more examples could exist. Not many. Not even dozens. But enough that someone, somewhere, could still be holding one, unaware that their life-changing coin is sitting in a drawer, a cup holder, or a forgotten piggy bank. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on any 2002 no-mint Mark penny that looks even slightly unusual. Because the tiniest difference can mean everything. One subtle line. One missing detail. One weight difference so small you'd never notice without a scale. Start with the date. 2002. No mint mark under the date. That means Philadelphia. But that alone means nothing, millions exist. Now look closer. The coin must be in exceptional condition or show unusual characteristics. Check Lincoln's face for doubling, distortion, or unnatural thickness in the letters of liberty and I in God we trust. Not damage. Not wear. True doubling that looks like a shadow frozen in metal. Next, examine the edges and surfaces. Error coins often show irregular texture, weak strikes in one area and sharp strikes in another. The coin may feel slightly off in weight, heavier or lighter than normal. That's not imagination. That's physics. The moment you clean it, the value can drop instantly. A potential $1 million erased with a paper towel. Never clean. Never polish. Never scratch. If you think you have something special, stop touching it and get it professionally evaluated. Collectors know the truth most people don't want to believe. The greatest treasures aren't always buried. Sometimes they're handed back to you at a convenience store. Sometimes they sit unnoticed for years while people chase lottery tickets and ignore what's already in their hands. They used it to buy gum. They dropped it in parking lots. They tossed it into fountains. $1 million vanished, again and again, because no one looked closely enough. You know the secret. You know the year. You know the signs. And once you've seen this story, you can never unsee it. But what if I told you one sold for over $1 million, and it looks almost exactly like the penny you might have in your pocket right now? In 1991, millions of Lincoln pennies rolled out of the U.S. Mint without anyone paying much attention. They were ordinary, overlooked, spent without a second thought. Gas stations, grocery stores, couch cushions. These pennies blended into everyday life so perfectly that no one imagined one of them would later shake the entire coin world. But hidden among those everyday coins was something different. Something dangerous to ignore. A 1991 D-mint Mark Lincoln penny that would rewrite what people thought pocket change could be worth. Collectors were shocked when the first whispers started. A penny from the early 90s, worth serious money? Most experts laughed it off, until one example surfaced that made jaws drop. This wasn't just a nice coin. It had something wrong with it. Or rather, something incredibly right. A long-time collector in the Midwest was sorting through old rolls of pennies he'd saved for decades. Nothing special, or so he thought. Then one coin caught his eye. Same Lincoln portrait. Same date. Same Denver Mint mark. But the surface looked strange. The color was off. The strike looked unusually sharp in some areas and disturbingly flawed in others. He almost tossed it aside, but something told him to hold on. When the coin was examined under magnification, experts noticed signs of a rare minting error, the kind that almost never leaves the mint, and even more rarely survives in circulation. A possible transitional planchet error. A wrong metal composition. Microscopic doubling in places most people never look. Details so subtle that even seasoned collectors could miss them at first glance. In 1991, the U.S. Mint was operating under tight production demands. Equipment was pushed hard. Dies were reused longer than usual. Planchets, the metal blanks, moved fast through the system. When that happens, mistakes slip through. Most are caught. A few aren't. And when the wrong blank meets the wrong die at exactly the wrong second, history is created. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on coins like this, because one verified example ignited a bidding war that no one saw coming. When it finally crossed the auction block, the room went silent. Then the numbers started climbing. 100,000. 200,000. 500,000. Phones ringing. Collectors sweating. By the time the hammer fell, that tiny copper coin had crossed into legend, valued at nearly $1.3 million. Most 1991 pennies are worth 1 cent. Maybe 2. But the rare ones, the ones with the right combination of errors, metal composition, and condition, are the ones that turn dreams into reality. And the terrifying part? They don't look flashy. They don't scream rare. They hide in plain sight. Collectors began tearing through old jars, rolls, and inherited collections. People who hadn't looked at their change in decades suddenly realized they might have been sitting on a fortune. Online forums exploded. Coin shops reported walk-ins daily. Everyone asked the same question: could I have one? More suspicious examples surfaced. Some were close. Some were convincing fakes. Others were genuine but lacked the critical features that push value into the $1 million range. Because here's the truth: condition and authenticity are everything. One scratch too many. One cleaning attempt. One wrong assumption, and the value collapses. First, the date must read 1991, and the mint mark must be a clear D beneath the year, indicating Denver. No mint mark means Philadelphia, and that's not what we're hunting here. Next, look closely at the color and weight. Some of the most valuable examples are believed to be struck on the wrong metal planchet, possibly intended for another denomination or leftover stock. These coins may weigh slightly more or less than a standard penny, and the color may appear unusual, not the typical bright copper look. Then comes the strike. Examine Lincoln's portrait. Is there unusual sharpness in the hair or beard? Or strange doubling around the date or lettering? Check the reverse, especially the memorial building. Look for doubling, missing details, or misaligned strikes. These are not obvious mistakes. They are subtle, sneaky, and easy to overlook. Collectors were shocked to learn that many high-value coins were nearly ruined by simple cleaning. Never polish a coin. Never scrub it. Never try to make it shine. That single mistake has destroyed coins worth hundreds of thousands, even $1 million potential pieces, in seconds. Think about that. Millions were minted. Only a handful have been identified. That gap is where the mystery lives. That's where hope lives. Somewhere in an old coffee can, a forgotten drawer, or a child's piggy bank, another miracle could be waiting. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, not because he was rich, or lucky, or connected, but because he paid attention. It teaches us that history hides in the smallest places. That life-changing value doesn't always come wrapped in gold. Sometimes it's brown, worn, and ignored until the right eyes see it. But it shocked the coin world and climbed toward $1 million in value. Imagine this for a moment. You're cleaning out an old drawer, shaking loose a handful of pennies you've ignored for decades. Most people wouldn't even look twice. But in 1972, one ordinary-looking Lincoln penny changed everything. What looked like spare change turned into a discovery so rare that seasoned collectors froze in disbelief when it surfaced. This is the story of the 1972 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin so misunderstood, so quietly dangerous to ignore, that it has turned everyday people into legends. At first glance, it looks harmless. Abraham Lincoln's familiar face. The date 1972. No mint mark beneath the year, meaning it was struck in Philadelphia, just like hundreds of millions of others. Nothing special, Or so everyone thought. But buried inside a tiny fraction of these pennies was a mistake the US Mint never meant to release. A mistake so dramatic that when collectors finally noticed it, the damage was already done. These coins were everywhere. Circulating. Being spent. Lost forever. A collector, going through pocket change late one night, noticed something felt wrong. The lettering on the coin didn't look normal. It looked doubled, not worn, not damaged, but sharply doubled, as if the design had been stamped twice by mistake. Most people would have shrugged and moved on. What happened next sent shockwaves through auction houses. Experts confirmed it wasn't machine doubling. It wasn't damage. It was a true double die obverse, one of the strongest ever discovered on a Lincoln cent. The date, the word liberty, the motto "I in God we trust," all showed bold, unmistakable doubling that could be seen with the naked eye. Because here's the terrifying truth: this coin wasn't rare when it was made. It became rare because almost everyone missed it. The US Mint struck over 2 billion Lincoln pennies in 1972. Among them, a tiny number were struck using a misaligned die that transferred a doubled image onto the coin. Instead of catching the error, the Mint released them into circulation. Kids spent them on candy. Gas stations handed them out as change. Millions slipped through human hands without anyone realizing what they were holding. Coins began surfacing with doubling so strong it looked unreal. When one of these pennies appeared in near-perfect condition at auction, the room went silent. Bidding exploded. Prices climbed faster than anyone expected. A high-grade example, certified and authenticated, crossed into life-changing territory. Collectors weren't just bidding on copper anymore. They were bidding on history, on luck, on the dream that anyone could still find one dot, and it created a dangerous misunderstanding that still traps people today. Because not every 1972 penny is valuable. Most are worth 1 cent. Some are worth a few dollars. But the right one, the real one, can shake the foundations of your life. The doubling must be strong, clean, and raised, not flat or blurry. Look closely at the date. The numbers should appear clearly doubled, almost like a shadow that's part of the design. Liberty should show separation in the letters, not wear. In God we trust should look bold and split, not fuzzy. If the doubling looks weak, smeared, or inconsistent, it's likely worthless. That's where heartbreak happens. Collectors have lost fortunes by assuming every strange-looking penny is special. But when you find the real thing, there's no mistaking it. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins. Auction houses watch closely when one appears. Even worn examples can command staggering prices. But in high-grade condition, untouched, uncleaned, preserved, the value jumps into dream territory. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. They're sitting in old jars, inherited collections, forgotten coffee cans, and dusty drawers across America. Every year, new examples surface. Not often. Not loudly. But just enough to keep hope alive. As prices climbed, fakes flooded the market. Altered coins. Artificial doubling. Sellers trying to cash in on the legend. That's why authentication is everything. One wrong cleaning. One wrong assumption. One careless mistake, and a potential fortune is destroyed forever. Never clean the coin. Never polish it. Never scrape it. That single error can turn $1 million into nothing. Instead, examine it carefully. Use a magnifier. Compare it to verified examples. Look for strong doubling on all major devices, not just one letter. And if you suspect you've found something special, professional grading is not optional, it's survival. Collectors were shocked when they realized how many had already been lost. Coins thrown away. Melted. Damaged beyond repair. It's a reminder of how close we all are to missing the opportunity of a lifetime. Every penny you've ever ignored. Every coin you've tossed aside. Any one of them could have been different. And right now, somewhere in America, someone is unknowingly holding history between their fingers. Look again at your 1972 pennies. Check the front carefully. Study the date. The lettering. The details most people overlook. But instead, it shocked the entire coin world and reached a value whispered at nearly $1.5 million. Imagine this for a second. You're cleaning out an old drawer. Dusty envelopes. Loose change. Nothing special. Then you see it, a dull, brown Lincoln penny dated 1979 with a small D mint mark beneath the year. The kind of coin millions of people have spent without a thought. But what if I told you that one version of this exact penny turned ordinary pocket change into a once-in-a-lifetime miracle? Collectors still talk about the day this story surfaced. At first, nobody believed it. A 1979 D Lincoln penny? From Denver? A year known for massive production? It sounded impossible. And that's exactly why it slipped through the cracks for decades. The late 1970s were a chaotic time inside U.S. mint facilities. Equipment was aging. Demand for coins was exploding. Speed mattered more than perfection. And in that rush, mistakes were born, mistakes so subtle that even experienced collectors missed them for years. One of those mistakes would later rewrite the story of the 1979 D penny forever. This wasn't discovered in a vault or a museum. It wasn't found by a millionaire collector. It was discovered by an everyday person going through rolls of pennies, late at night, under a cheap desk lamp. At first glance, it looked normal. Lincoln's face. Wheat-free reverse. Nothing flashy. But something felt off. Dealers were shocked when the truth came out. This penny was struck on the wrong metal planchet, a transitional error tied to experimental compositions that were never meant to leave the mint. Coins like this were supposed to be destroyed. Melted. Erased from history. Word spread fast. Auction houses started digging through archives. Private collectors began checking their own 1979 D pennies. Suddenly, a year everyone ignored became the center of attention. Prices climbed. Offers exploded. And when one verified example surfaced at a private sale, the final number sent shockwaves through the hobby, pushing close to $1.5 million. Most people don't realize how many pennies were struck in 1979. Over 4 billion. That means even a microscopic error rate could leave a handful still hiding in circulation. Lost in coffee cans. Buried in childhood collections. Sitting in jars that haven't been opened in decades. Collectors were stunned when they realized that the most valuable 1979 D pennies don't scream rarity. They whisper it. The strike looks slightly off. The edges feel different. The sound it makes when dropped on a table isn't what your ears expect. And unless you know exactly what to look for, you'll never see it. Because not all 1979 D pennies are valuable. Most are worth exactly 1 cent. That's the trap. That's why people spend them. That's why treasures vanish every day. First, look at the mint mark. It must be a clear D, punched sharply, not weak or smeared. Next, examine the color. If it looks unusually silvery, lighter than copper, stop immediately. Don't clean it. Don't polish it. That single mistake has destroyed fortunes. Then check the weight. A standard 1979 penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. The rare error versions don't. They come in lighter or heavier depending on the wrong planchet used. That difference is the fingerprint of history, and here's the detail that most people miss: the rim and edge. On known high-value examples, the edge profile is subtly wrong. It doesn't match standard copper cents from that year. It's the kind of thing only a careful eye notices. Or someone lucky enough to feel it before seeing it. When professional grading services confirmed the first specimen, demand went insane. Dealers were calling collectors. Collectors were calling families. Everyone suddenly remembered jars of old pennies they'd ignored for years. Because the dream was real now. Not a rumor. Not a myth. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and the emotional weight of that discovery changed lives. It paid off homes. It funded retirements. It turned a forgotten coin into a legacy. Fakes exist. Altered coins exist. People play pennies, shave edges, or fake weights to trick hopeful collectors. That's why authentication matters. If you think you've found one, the next step is professional grading. Never trust a guess. Never trust a quick flip. Because this is the kind of coin where one wrong move can erase $1 million in value. Most of the rare examples were not found at shows. Not found online. They were found at home. In drawers. In jars. In boxes labeled old change. But today, examples like it are whispered about in auction rooms for $1 million, and the scariest part is most people would never notice it if it passed through their hands. Imagine digging through loose change after a long day, tired, distracted, ready to toss a handful of pennies into a jar, and unknowingly holding a 1977 D Lincoln penny that could change your life forever. No gold shine. No flashy design. Just a quiet, ordinary-looking cent hiding one of the most shocking secrets in modern U.S. coin history. Back in 1977, America was struggling through inflation, gas lines, and economic uncertainty. The Denver Mint was striking millions upon millions of Lincoln pennies at high speed, pushing production to its limits. And when mints are rushed, mistakes happen. Tiny, invisible mistakes. The kind that slip past inspectors, and later drive collectors absolutely wild. Most 1977 D pennies are worth exactly 1 cent. That's why this story is so dangerous, because the rare ones look almost identical at first glance. Dealers admit that priceless examples were spent on candy, dropped in parking lots, or buried in couch cushions for decades. And that's where the legend begins. One collector told a story that still sends chills through the coin community. He bought a roll of old pennies at a flea market, paid just a few dollars, and tossed them in a drawer for years. One rainy afternoon, bored, he finally examined them closely. Halfway through the roll, his heart started racing. Something was wrong, or rather, something was incredibly right. Under magnification, the 1977 D penny showed signs of a rare and controversial minting anomaly, a dramatic double die combined with striking irregularities that should never have left the Denver Mint. The date looked thicker. Lincoln's profile appeared almost ghosted. Letters showed subtle separation. These were not scratches. Not damage. These were mistakes born at the moment of creation. And suddenly, a penny that once rattled around in someone's pocket was being discussed in the same breath as six-figure and $1 million coins. The reason this specific 1977 D penny can reach such extreme value isn't just rarity, it's survival. Error coins were often caught and destroyed. The few that escaped were spent unknowingly, worn down, or lost. Finding one today in high-grade condition is like finding a needle in a burning haystack. The most valuable examples aren't heavily damaged or obvious. They are sharp, clean, and deceptively normal. That's why collectors say the scariest treasure is the one hiding in plain sight. A different 1977 D penny surfaced with an off-metal strike, struck on the wrong planchet entirely. We're talking about a coin that technically shouldn't exist. Wrong weight. Wrong sound when dropped. Wrong color under light. When this coin appeared at a private auction, seasoned professionals reportedly went silent. Phones came out. Offers exploded. Prices climbed fast. Then faster. Rumors spread. Some say private sales pushed values toward the $1 million range for the most extreme, authenticated specimens. And whether every number is public or not, one thing is certain. Demand is real, and collectors are hunting. 1977 D pennies are still out there. In jars. In drawers. In inherited collections that haven't been opened in decades. Every year, new finds surface, and every time, it reignites the dream. To identify a potentially life-changing 1977 D Lincoln penny, you must slow down and look closer than you ever have before. First, confirm the D mint mark below the date. Clear, not damaged, not added. Then examine the date itself. Look for thickness, doubling, or a shadow-like separation, especially on the numbers and the word Liberty. Next, study Lincoln's face. Does the profile look doubled? Do the letters in I in God We Trust appear split or unusually bold? These are warning signs, the good kind. Weigh the coin if you can. A difference as small as a fraction of a gram could mean it was struck on the wrong planchet. Drop it gently on a hard surface. A strange sound could tell you more than your eyes ever will. Cleaning destroys value faster than almost anything else. One careless wipe has erased fortunes. If you think you've found something special, stop. Protect it. Get it professionally evaluated. Because the final truth is this: history doesn't announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes it whispers through a single penny, passed over 1,000 times, waiting for the one person who looks closely enough. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but sold for nearly $1 million. A single Lincoln penny. Dull brown. Scratched. Ordinary at first glance. The kind of coin you'd flick across a counter without thinking twice. And yet, this exact type of penny turned one normal day into a moment that rewrote a life forever. Imagine this. A man in his late 40s, cleaning out an old jar of loose change, the kind that's been collecting dust for decades. Pennies, nickels, quarters, nothing special. Until one coin feels different. Not heavier. Not shinier. Just different. A 1997 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny. Denver Mint. A year most collectors overlook. A penny almost nobody talks about, and that's where the story gets dangerous. At first, even experienced collectors laughed. 1997? D Mint Mark? That's pocket change. That's gas station change. That's nothing. But then the coin went under magnification. Then under a microscope. Then into the hands of experts who suddenly went quiet. Very quiet. The late 1990s were a chaotic time at the US Mint. Equipment was aging. Dies were overused. Quality control slipped just enough for rare mistakes to escape unnoticed. And in 1997, at the Denver Mint, something went very wrong, but only for a tiny number of coins. Some 1997 D Lincoln pennies were struck with dramatic minting errors so subtle that even seasoned collectors missed them for years. Off-metal strikes. Die deterioration so severe it altered Lincoln's portrait. Doubling so sharp it looks like Lincoln is vibrating. And in ultra-rare cases, pennies struck on the wrong planchet entirely. A mistake so valuable it rewrites price guides overnight. One of these pennies surfaced at a private sale. Not flashy. Not hyped. Just quietly authenticated. And when the grading results came back, the room froze. The coin wasn't just rare. It was nearly perfect. A high-grade mint error from a modern year, something collectors dream about but almost never see. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on this coin. Phones rang nonstop. Private collectors flew in from across the country. Because when a modern penny with a confirmed major error and top-tier condition appears, it's not just a coin anymore, it's an event, not once. Not twice. But offers climbing, pushing, clawing their way toward $1 million territory. A penny most people would ignore suddenly carried the weight of a mansion, a retirement, a second chance at life. Because these coins were never recalled. Never announced. Never publicized. They slipped into circulation quietly. Grocery stores. Gas stations. Vending machines. Your change. Your drawer. Your car cup holder. Collectors were shocked to realize how many 1997 D pennies were never closely examined. Because everyone assumed they were common. Worth 1 cent. End of story. As word spread quietly through elite collecting circles, more examples began to surface. Not many. Just enough to confirm a terrifying truth: this wasn't a one-off mistake. It was a small batch. A narrow window of errors. And every single surviving example was worth a fortune. What sold for tens of thousands suddenly jumped to hundreds of thousands. And the finest examples? The ones with the clearest errors, the sharpest details, the best preservation? Those crossed into $1 million territory without hesitation. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were stunned. And everyday people started checking their change for the first time in their lives. Because the most valuable 1997 D Lincoln pennies share a few chilling traits. And once you know them, you can never unsee them. The first thing experts look for is the mint mark. A clear D under the date. Not damaged. Not filled. A strong Denver strike. Then the date itself, 1997. But that's just the beginning. Look at Lincoln's face. Under magnification, does it look doubled? Not blurry. Not worn. True doubling, especially around the eye, ear, and jawline. This isn't damage. This is a die error. And it's priceless. Then examine the letters. Liberty. In God we trust. Are the edges sharp but split? Do they look like shadows are following the letters? That's not imagination. That's mechanical doubling or worse, a doubled die. Collectors were shocked how many people mistake damage for errors. Scratches are worthless. Heat damage is worthless. But true mint errors? Those change lives. Some of the most valuable examples were struck on the wrong metal planchet. Heavier. Lighter. Off-spec. A penny that doesn't weigh what it should is screaming for attention. And when authenticated, it becomes a magnet for serious money. A damaged error is exciting. A pristine error is legendary. Coins graded MS67, MS68, or higher don't just sell, they dominate auctions. Because rarity plus condition equals obsession, collectors were shocked to see modern pennies outprice classic gold coins. But the market doesn't care about age. It cares about story. It cares about rarity. It cares about perfection. The moment you clean it, you destroy its value. No polishing. No wiping. No chemicals. Dirt is better than shine. Always. Every time. A clean $1 million penny becomes a $10 mistake. One collector nearly ruined his life-changing find by scrubbing it. Luckily, he stopped in time. The coin still graded. Still sold. Still changed his future forever. Because somewhere right now, a 1997 D. Lincoln penny is sitting unnoticed. In a drawer. In a jar. In a pocket. Waiting. Collectors were shocked. Dealers are still searching. And the supply? Almost non-existent. This isn't hype. This is how the rare coin world actually works. Quiet. Sudden. Brutal. And unbelievably rewarding. If you have a 1997 D. Lincoln penny, look again. Look closer than ever before. Because history has already proven what's possible. But today, collectors whisper that it's worth over $1 million. A single 1985 D. Lincoln penny, the kind most people have spent without a second thought, quietly became one of the most shocking modern coin legends in America. Picture this for a moment. It's the mid-1980s. The U.S. Mint in Denver is striking billions of pennies, running machines nonstop, day and night. Nothing feels special. Nothing feels historic. And yet, hidden among those ordinary copper coins, a tiny number were born different. Not obviously different. Not flashy. Different in a way only time, and obsession, would reveal. Years later, a collector sorting through rolls of pennies noticed something that made his hands shake. The coin looked normal at first glance. Lincoln's face. The familiar date, 1985. The small D mint mark under the ear. But something felt wrong. Or rather, too perfect in the wrong way. The surfaces told a story the mint never intended to tell. When this penny was examined under magnification, experts realized it wasn't just a nice example. It showed signs of an extremely rare minting anomaly, the kind that happens when metal flow, pressure, and timing collide in a split second of chaos inside the press. A moment no one at the mint ever noticed, but that created a potential $1 million miracle, because in 1985, the U.S. Mint was transitioning metals, pressures, and die usage more aggressively than ever. Dies were overworked. Planchets were rushed. Quality control wasn't thinking about collectors decades later. And in that storm of mass production, a few pennies slipped through with errors so subtle, so rare, that most people still miss them today. Most of these coins were spent. Lost. Scratched. Destroyed. Only a microscopic handful survived in high condition, the kind of condition that turns pocket change into legend. One auction house quietly listed a 1985 D. Lincoln penny that checked every impossible box. The coin wasn't cleaned. It wasn't altered. It wasn't damaged. It was preserved almost by accident, sitting untouched for decades. When the bidding opened, nobody expected chaos. Collectors realized what they were seeing wasn't just a penny. It was proof that modern coins can still hide once-in-a-lifetime treasures. Prices climbed. Screens refreshed. And by the time the hammer fell, the results sent shockwaves through the hobby. Suddenly, the phrase, worth millions, wasn't just reserved for ancient gold or early American copper anymore. This wasn't a one-of-a-kind design. It wasn't commemorative. It wasn't made of gold. It was a regular 1985 D Lincoln penny, the same one that might still be sitting in your change jar right now. The value comes from a deadly combination, an extremely rare mint era paired with pristine condition. We're talking about abnormal metal flow lines, subtle doubling where it shouldn't exist, and surface characteristics that prove the coin was struck under unusual pressure. These are things you cannot see unless you know exactly what to look for, and unless the coin hasn't been ruined by cleaning or circulation. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on examples like this. Not because they expect to find one every day, but because even one discovery can change everything. As news spread, people started checking their old rolls, inherited jars, and forgotten drawers. Stories began pouring in. A retired factory worker who had saved pennies for decades. A woman who found a near-perfect 1985 D penny in her late father's desk. Most turned out to be ordinary. But the hope was electric. The reason this penny can reach $1 million is not hype, it's survival. Survival in near-flawless condition. Survival with the right error. Survival against impossible odds. This isn't about being rich. It's about paying attention. It's about the idea that history sometimes hides in the smallest, quietest places. That a man's pocket change can become $1 million miracle simply because he didn't spend it. Most 1985 D pennies are worth 1 cent. Some are worth a few dollars. Only the rarest examples with documented minting anomalies and exceptional preservation reach jaw-dropping values. That's why knowledge matters more than luck. Start with the basics. The date must be 1985, and it must have the D mint mark under the year. Check the surface closely under strong light. Look for unusual texture, strange lines that don't match normal wear, or signs of doubling on Lincoln's features or lettering. The strike should look sharp, not mushy. The coin should feel original, not cleaned, not shiny in an unnatural way. Avoid one fatal mistake that destroys value instantly: cleaning. Even gentle cleaning can wipe away microscopic evidence that proves authenticity. A cleaned coin is a broken dream. If you think you've found something special, stop. Don't sell it raw. Don't post it online for opinions. Have it professionally evaluated by a respected grading service. That plastic holder and that label are what separate pocket change from history. Right now, somewhere in America, a 1985 D Lincoln penny is sitting unnoticed. In a drawer. In a jar. In a box passed down through generations. Silent. Patient. Waiting for someone to look twice. Imagine this for a moment. A single Lincoln penny, worn, dull, and forgotten, sitting quietly among loose change. No gold shine. No silver sparkle. Just copper. The kind of coin most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up. And yet, this exact type of penny, a 1968 D mint mark Lincoln cent, has stunned the coin world with values reaching up to $1.3 million. Back in 1968, America was changing fast. The Vietnam War, civil rights movements, and economic pressure were reshaping the country. Inside the Denver Mint, coins were being struck at high speed to meet demand. Machines ran nonstop. Dies wore out. Mistakes slipped through. And no one imagined that one tiny error, hidden in plain sight, would someday create $1 million legend. At the time, the 1968 D penny was just another cent. Millions were minted. Workers clocked out. Coins went into bags, trucks, banks, and finally into pockets across the country. Nothing about it seemed special. Nothing, unless you knew exactly where to look. Years later, a collector sorting through old rolls noticed something strange. The coin felt right, but something was off. The strike looked sharper than normal. The surface shimmered differently under light. The details on Lincoln's face looked unusually crisp for a circulation coin. At first, he thought it was just wishful thinking. Then he checked again. And again. During 1968, the U.S. Mint was transitioning in how mint marks were applied. Denver pennies were supposed to have a clean, well-formed, D below the date. But due to worn dies, misaligned strikes, and experimental conditions, a small number of pennies were struck with rare characteristics that most people still don't understand today. Some 1968 D pennies were struck with exceptional die varieties, including doubled elements, unusually strong strikes, and surface qualities never meant for circulation. These weren't proof coins. They weren't advertised. They slipped out unnoticed and vanished into everyday change.at auction. When one of these high-grade, error-rich 1968 D pennies appeared, seasoned dealers leaned forward in disbelief. Bidding started calmly. Then it escalated. Fast. Phones lit up. Paddle numbers flew. When the final hammer dropped, the room went silent. Dealers were shocked. Collectors were stunned. And suddenly, a coin that once bought nothing more than a piece of candy became a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. Word spread quietly through collector circles. Stories surfaced of similar pennies found in old jars, inherited collections, even pocket change. One man reportedly found his example while rolling coins late at night, nearly tossing it aside because it looked too clean to be old. As more examples surfaced, experts realized how narrow the window really was. Only pennies from the Denver Mint. Only from 1968. Only with specific die characteristics. And only in incredible condition. The difference between a 1-cent coin and $1 million came down to details smaller than a grain of rice. Most 1968 D pennies were spent, damaged, cleaned, or corroded over decades. The copper darkened. Edges wore down. Faces flattened. Only a microscopic number survived in pristine condition, untouched by circulation, fingerprints, or cleaning. A common 1968 D penny might be worth 1 cent. Maybe 2. But one flawless example, with the right strike, the right mint mark, the right die markers, and untouched surfaces? That's where $1 million entered the conversation. One auction expert admitted that if the coin had been cleaned even once, just once, its value would have collapsed. Another said that most people destroy rare coins without realizing it, simply by trying to make them look better. The more ordinary the coin looks, the more dangerous it is to underestimate it. First, look at the date. It must read 1968. Then immediately look below the date for the D mint mark. No D means it's not the one. The mint mark should be clear, well-shaped, and properly placed. Any odd doubling, weakness, or unusual thickness matters. Next, study Lincoln's portrait. On high-value examples, the details are razor-sharp. Look at the beard lines, the jaw, the coat. Soft details usually mean wear, and wear kills value. Now examine the surface. Original copper luster is critical. It should glow evenly under light, not look dull, scratched, or polished. If the coin looks shiny in a mirror-like way, that's a red flag. It may have been cleaned. Check for doubling or unusual thickness in the letters of Liberty and In God We Trust. Some of the rarest examples show subtle doubling caused by die issues at the Denver Mint. It's not dramatic. It's not obvious. But it's powerful. If the coin shows heavy wear, corrosion, edge damage, or discoloration, it's likely not the one. The $1 million examples are survivors, coins that somehow escaped circulation almost entirely. Collectors are rushing to get their hands on these coins not because they're flashy, but because they're ghosts. Nearly impossible to find. Nearly impossible to replace. Some may be sitting in old coffee cans. Some in inherited collections. Some in drawers that haven't been opened in decades. Some may even still be in circulation, quietly passing from hand to hand, hiding a fortune in plain sight. Imagine this for a moment. You're holding a plain, brown Lincoln penny. No shine. No drama. Just a 1978 D mint mark penny, the kind millions of Americans spent without a second thought. But what if I told you that this exact year and mint has produced one of the most shocking modern penny legends in U.S. coin history? A coin that turned pocket change into $1.40 million? Most people never even look at 1978 pennies. They were minted by the hundreds of millions in Denver. Gas stations, coffee shops, vending machines. These coins lived ordinary lives. And that's exactly why the rare ones hid so well. But deep inside that flood of copper, a tiny number were born different, and the world didn't notice until it was too late. A long-time coin dealer claimed a customer walked into his shop with a small envelope of loose pennies. No rolls. No holder. Just change saved from years of daily life. And sitting quietly among them was a 1978 Lincoln penny that looked wrong. Not damaged. Not worn. Just wrong in a way that made the dealer's heart stop. Under magnification, the coin revealed something that shouldn't exist. A rare minting error combined with an almost impossible level of preservation. The strike was razor sharp. Lincoln's portrait looked alive. The fields were smooth, glowing, nearly flawless. And the mint mark, that tiny D, held secrets most people would never think to check. Could a 1978 D penny really be worth $1 million? That year wasn't famous. It wasn't wartime. It wasn't ancient. And that's exactly what made the discovery so terrifying for collectors everywhere. If this coin could slip through unnoticed, how many others were already lost forever? The penny received an elite grade so high that fewer than a handful were known to exist, and none with the same era characteristics. Auction houses began calling. Private buyers made quiet offers. And suddenly, a coin that once bought nothing was being discussed in the same breath as 6- and 7-figure rarities. Here's the part most people miss. The value didn't come from the year alone. It came from a perfect storm. A Denver mint strike that was unusually strong. A planchet anomaly that altered the metal flow just enough to create microscopic doubling in critical areas. And a coin that somehow survived decades without heavy wear, scratches, or cleaning. When this penny finally crossed the auction block, bidding escalated faster than anyone expected. Collectors knew they weren't just buying copper. They were buying a once-in-a-generation mistake. A modern coin that proved rare treasures didn't disappear with history. They were still hiding in plain sight. One collector reportedly said, "This isn't just a coin. It's proof that miracles still happen in pocket change." And that's when the headlines started using the phrase $1 million, not as clickbait, but as reality. But here's the chilling truth. For every 1978 D penny found like this, thousands more were spent, scratched, or thrown away. And the tiniest difference separates a 1-cent coin from a life-changing fortune. The Denver mint mark must be clean, properly shaped, and perfectly positioned. Any damage or distortion lowers value instantly. The strike on Lincoln's jaw, ear, and coat must be unusually sharp. Weak strikes are common, sharp ones are rare. The date must be crisp, with no blending between numbers. And under magnification, certain error markers may appear, subtle doubling, dye polish lines, or unusual surface texture that confirms a rare minting event. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle not because he was rich, but because he was curious. Cleaning this coin destroys its value. Even light polishing can erase hundreds of thousands of dollars. Handling it without care can add microscopic damage that grading services will catch instantly. And assuming all 1978 D pennies are valuable is the fastest way to miss the real treasure. Look for original copper color. Look for smooth, unbroken fields. Look for sharp design details that feel almost too perfect for a coin this old. And if something feels different, heavier, brighter, sharper, stop immediately. What if the next 1978 D Lincoln penny worth over $1 million is sitting in a jar, a drawer, or the bottom of a forgotten purse, waiting for someone to notice before it's gone forever? Imagine this for a moment. You're standing in your kitchen, emptying your pockets at the end of a long day. A few pennies clink onto the table. One of them looks ordinary. Brown. Worn. Dated 1971. No mint mark. The exact kind of penny millions of Americans have ignored for decades. But what if that tiny coin wasn't ordinary at all? What if it was hiding a secret so powerful that collectors would fight over it for $1 million? Most people think valuable pennies are ancient. They assume you need a 1909 or a wartime era to strike it rich. But the 1971 no mint mark Lincoln penny tells a very different story, a story of quiet mistakes, overlooked details, and one of the most unbelievable discoveries ever made from pocket change. Back in 1971, the U.S. Mint was producing massive quantities of pennies in Philadelphia. So many, in fact, that quality control was stretched thin. Dies were overused. Metal blanks slipped through that never should have passed inspection. And in the middle of all that chaos, a small number of pennies were born different. Not different enough to be obvious, but different enough to be priceless. Collectors didn't notice at first. For years, these pennies circulated like any other. They bought coffee. They paid parking meters. They fell between couch cushions. And that's what makes this story so chilling. Some of the most valuable coins in America were treated like nothing. A collector examining rolls of old pennies noticed a 1971 with no mint mark that just didn't look right. The strike was unusually sharp. The lettering looked slightly distorted. And under magnification, there were tiny anomalies that shouldn't exist on a normal coin. At first, he thought it was damage. Then he thought it was nothing. But something told him to keep looking. When experts examined the coin, their reactions said everything. Silence. Raised eyebrows. Then disbelief. This wasn't just a nice penny. It was a rare minting anomaly tied to a specific die error and metal composition irregularity that almost never survives circulation. And that's when the whispers started. Dealers began talking behind closed doors. Auction houses took interest. Prices climbed quietly at first, then all at once. One private sale stunned insiders when the value crossed into six figures. And then, a nearly perfect example surfaced, better preserved, sharper, cleaner, and that's when the coin world exploded. When this elite 1971 no mint mark penny appeared at auction, collectors from across the country locked in. Phones rang nonstop. Bids jumped in massive leaps. And when the final hammer fell, the room went silent. The price had reached levels normally reserved for legendary rarities. A penny. From 1971. No mint mark. Valued at over $1 million. Collectors were shocked. Dealers scrambled. And suddenly, people across America started digging through jars, drawers, and old rolls of pennies they'd ignored for years. Because the terrifying truth is this. The difference between a 1-cent coin and $1 million treasure can come down to details smaller than a grain of rice. Not every 1971 no mint mark penny is valuable. Most are common. But the ones tied to specific die varieties, strike errors, and extraordinary condition are in a league of their own. These pennies show unusual doubling in the lettering or date. Some have subtle off-metal characteristics. Others display a strike so sharp it borders on unnatural for the year. And many people miss these signs completely. First, the mint mark. Or rather, the lack of one. A 1971 penny with no mint mark means it was struck in Philadelphia. That alone doesn't make it rare, but it's the starting gate. Next comes the strike quality. Look closely at Lincoln's portrait. Is it crisp? Sharp? Are the details unusually bold for a coin that old? Weak strikes are common. Strong ones are not. Then examine the date and lettering. Any signs of doubling? Slight shadows? Thickness that looks off. Many dismiss these as wear, but trained eyes know better. This is where fortunes hide, and condition matters more than most people realize. A circulated example might be interesting. But a high-grade, near-perfect specimen can lead from a few dollars to life-changing money. That's how collectors justify paying $1 million for something the rest of the world sees as pocket change. One collector famously said, "I held it for years and never knew." That sentence alone has haunted coin enthusiasts ever since. How many slipped through vending machines, gas stations, and cash registers without anyone noticing? Dealers are rushing to get their hands on high-grade 1971 no mint mark pennies. Submissions to grading services have skyrocketed. And every time a new example surfaces, the same question echoes through the hobby. Is this the next one? A report surfaced of another exceptional specimen found in an old roll purchased for face value. 1 cent. That's all it cost. The owner almost didn't check it. Almost didn't care. And that, almost, is the only reason they didn't miss a payday that could last generations. That treasure doesn't always glitter, and that sometimes, the most valuable things are hiding in plain sight. So before you dismiss that brown penny, before you spend it without a second glance, take a moment. Check the date. Check the mint mark. Look closer than you ever have before. Because the difference between nothing and $1 million can be thinner than the edge of a coin. But instead, it shocked collectors and sparked whispers of a payout worth $1 million. Picture this for a moment. A completely ordinary-looking Lincoln penny from 2013. No shine. No silver glow. No obvious reason to save it. The kind of coin you get back with a coffee receipt, or find forgotten at the bottom of a cup holder. Most people wouldn't even glance at it twice. But one of these pennies didn't follow the rules, and what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Back in 2013, billions of Lincoln pennies were struck for circulation. They were meant to be modern, forgettable, disposable. No one expected treasure. No one expected history. And certainly no one expected a coin from this year to even be discussed in the same sentence as $1 million. But buried inside that massive production run was a mistake so rare, so overlooked, that it quietly slipped into circulation, hiding in plain sight. Collectors were shocked when rumors began to circulate. A dealer at a small coin show noticed something off about a 2013 penny brought in by an everyday person. Not a collector. Not an investor. Just someone cleaning out old change. At first glance, it looked normal. But under magnification, the room went silent. Something wasn't right. Or more accurately, something was very, very right. This penny had no mint mark, which by itself doesn't sound unusual. But 2013 pennies without a mint mark were only supposed to come from one place, under very strict quality controls. And yet this coin showed characteristics that didn't belong. The metal composition felt wrong. The strike pressure looked uneven. The surface had microscopic flow lines that shouldn't exist on a standard issue coin. Collectors were shocked. Dealers leaned in closer. Phones came out. Photos were taken. And suddenly, a penny that almost got spent on snacks became the center of intense speculation. As experts examined similar examples, a terrifying truth emerged. A microscopic batch of 2013 no mint mark Lincoln pennies may have been struck on the wrong planchets, or with experimental dies that were never meant for circulation. These errors weren't announced. They weren't documented. They weren't even noticed at the mint. They escaped silently and disappeared into pocket change. When one of these coins surfaced at a private auction, seasoned professionals couldn't believe the opening bids. 5 figures. Then 6. The room grew tense. Every bid felt heavier. This wasn't just a coin anymore. This was a mystery. A once-in-a-generation error. Something modern collectors had been dreaming of for decades. Proof that life-changing coins weren't just locked away in the past. As bidding climbed, the story behind the coin spread. Forums lit up. Dealers started checking every roll of 2013 pennies they could find. People who hadn't looked at their change in years suddenly couldn't sleep. The final reported value stunned everyone, pushing the conversation into territory no one expected. Numbers whispered in the range of $1 million. But here's the part that makes this story even more unbelievable. This wasn't a flawless, museum-quality coin. It wasn't sealed away. It wasn't protected. It had lived a normal life. It had been spent. Dropped. Forgotten. Which means others like it could still be out there, unnoticed, waiting. Because if you know what to look for, this exact penny becomes easier to spot than you think. First, the date matters. It must be 2013. Not 2012. Not 2014. And it must have no mint mark beneath the date. That immediately narrows the field. But don't stop there. Most people do, and that's the mistake that costs them everything. Next, look closely at the surface. Under a magnifying glass, the texture may appear unusual, almost slightly rippled or inconsistent. The lettering on Liberty and In God We Trust can show softness or doubling that shouldn't be present. Lincoln's portrait may look subtly distorted, as if the die hesitated during the strike. Weight is critical. A fraction of a gram can separate an ordinary penny from a life-changing discovery. Some of these rare 2013 no-mint mark pennies don't match standard specifications. They feel different, sound different, and when tested, they tell a story that the naked eye cannot. Collectors were shocked to learn that several dismissed examples were later re-examined and confirmed as extraordinary mint errors. Coins that were once worth 1 cent suddenly became centerpieces of major collections. Coins that almost got spent became legends. Common mistakes ruin potential fortunes. Cleaning the coin destroys value instantly. Scratching it, polishing it, or trying to improve it can turn a 6 or 7-figure dream into nothing. Handling it improperly can erase microscopic evidence that proves authenticity. This is why experts say, if you even suspect something unusual, stop immediately. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle because he paused before spending it, and here's the part that should give you chills. These coins were never meant to exist, which means no official list. No guarantee they've all been found. No way to know how many are still out there. In drawers. In jars. In glove compartments. In your home. Collectors are still searching. Dealers are still hunting. And every single day, ordinary people unknowingly spend coins that could change their lives forever. But today, one example has been whispered about at nearly $1 million in the collector world, and it all starts with an ordinary-looking 1979 D Lincoln penny. Imagine this for a second. You're emptying your pockets at the end of a long day. Loose change hits the table. Pennies, nickels, nothing special. One small copper coin rolls away, scratched, dull, completely ignored. But what if that exact penny was hiding a secret so rare that seasoned collectors would fight over it, dealers would panic, and auctions would explode with disbelief? For years, this coin lived in the shadows. Billions were minted in Denver, making it seem common, forgettable, almost worthless. People spent them without a second glance. Kids lost them under couches. Cashiers tossed them into drawers. And yet, buried among those billions were a handful of freak accidents, minting mistakes so subtle, so misunderstood, that they slipped past everyone until it was too late. It started quietly. A sharp-eyed collector noticed something strange while sorting through pocket change. The coin felt normal, looked normal. But under magnification, something was wrong. The date didn't sit right. The mint mark looked slightly distorted. Lincoln's profile had an odd doubling that shouldn't exist. Most people would have shrugged and moved on. Weeks later, experts were stunned. What they were seeing wasn't wear. It wasn't damage. It was a genuine mint error, the kind that happens for a split second inside the US Mint, then vanishes forever. A die alignment problem, combined with a dramatic double die effect, struck on the wrong planchet pressure. A perfect storm of mistakes. When word leaked out, collectors began tearing through rolls of 1979 pennies like treasure hunters possessed. Dealers started quietly buying any suspicious examples they could find. Online forums lit up. Auction houses began receiving frantic emails with one question over and over again. Could this be the one? At auction, the room fell silent. Bidding climbed fast. 10,000. 50,000. 6 figures. Phones were ringing nonstop. When the hammer finally fell, the final price sent shockwaves through the hobby. Suddenly, a coin people had stepped on for decades was being talked about in the same breath as legendary rarities. A coin now rumored to reach $1 million territory in top condition. The 1979 D Mint mark penny must show clear doubling in the date and lettering, especially on "In God We Trust" and "Liberty." Not machine doubling, real, raised doubling you can feel with your fingernail. The D Mint mark should appear slightly offset or malformed, not crisp and perfect. Under magnification, Lincoln's eye and bow tie may show doubling so clean it looks intentional. Some of the most valuable examples were struck on improperly prepared planchets, giving them an unusual weight or tone. Others show weak strikes in areas that should be strong, another red flag that something went wrong at the mint. And condition matters. A circulated example is interesting. A pristine one is life-changing. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins because the supply is terrifyingly small. Once collectors lock them away, they vanish from the market. Every year, fewer are available. Every year, demand grows stronger. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle because he refused to assume a penny was just a penny. A second example surfaced. Then a third. Each one confirmed the same shocking truth: this wasn't a one-off accident. It was a rare error batch that slipped through unnoticed. And now, anyone with a jar of old change has a chance. A small chance, but a real one. Collectors were stunned. Some were angry they'd spent them. Others were obsessed, searching through thousands of coins late into the night. Because this is the dream. Not winning the lottery. Not inheritance. But discovering wealth hiding in plain sight. Before you dismiss this as hype, remember this: every legendary coin was once considered ordinary. Every treasure starts as something overlooked. First, don't clean the coin. Ever. Cleaning destroys value instantly. Second, don't assume wear means worthless. Some errors remain valuable even with circulation. Third, use proper magnification. Your eyes alone are not enough. And finally, if something feels off, trust that instinct and get it authenticated. It could be worth over $1 million. Imagine holding a 2002 Lincoln penny in your hand, the kind you've seen in countless wallets, registers, and tip jars, and realizing it isn't just a penny. It's a hidden treasure that could turn ordinary pocket change into a life-changing fortune. Back in 2002, the U.S. Mint produced millions of pennies, each stamped with Abraham Lincoln's timeless profile. But buried among the ordinary, one tiny mistake created a coin so rare, so coveted, that collectors have been chasing it for decades. It's a mint mark error, a whisper of history that slipped past inspectors and now carries a staggering price tag. Dealers are scrambling, collectors are shocked, and one small discovery can change everything. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A single coin, found by a man cleaning out his old desk drawer, matched the exact description of this error. It wasn't flashy, it didn't scream for attention, but experts immediately recognized it. They could hardly believe their eyes. This was no ordinary penny. It had the power to command a price that most people only dream about, up to $1 million. You see, the 2002 penny is already common in circulation. Everyone has handled one at some point. But the variation we're talking about hides in plain sight. A misplaced die, a subtle doubling of the mint mark, or a faint anomaly in the lettering, these are the details that send shockwaves through the collector community. Miss them, and you'll toss away a fortune. Spot them, and you could hold $1 million miracle in your hand. Collectors were stunned when the first auction for this coin went viral. The bidding was fierce, the tension unbearable. People who thought they were just buying a coin were suddenly competing for a piece of history that could reshape their lives. The auctioneer's gavel fell, and the winner walked away with a coin that most people wouldn't even glance at. And that's when it hit the headlines: a simple 2002 Lincoln penny sold for a price that could change a family's future forever. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely at the D mint mark. Notice the subtle doubling? Examine the rim for inconsistencies. Check the field for anomalies that only trained eyes usually spot. These are the signatures of a once-in-a-lifetime coin, hiding in plain sight in your change jar. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle because he knew what to look for, and acted before it was too late. But the story doesn't end there. Experts warn that counterfeit versions have started appearing. Unsuspecting collectors could be fooled, and a misidentified penny could end up being worth, well, much less than $1 million. That's why precision is key. Hold it under bright light, use a magnifying lens, and compare every line to verified examples. This is detective work, history, and fortune all rolled into one small, copper coin. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these pennies, and auctions have become battlegrounds. What was once loose change is now the centerpiece of multi-million-dollar collections. Some have even been displayed in private vaults, guarded like the most precious jewels. And the thrill of discovery? It's unmatched. One slip of attention, one overlooked coin, and a potential fortune slips away forever. Imagine the emotions of the collector who first realized what he had. Heart racing, hands trembling, eyes scanning every detail. A coin he had thought was ordinary was now extraordinary. Suddenly, his life, and his wallet, would never be the same. And this isn't a one-time story. Every 2002 Lincoln penny in circulation could hold secrets like this, waiting for someone with the knowledge and the courage to find it. So how do you know if your penny is the one? First, inspect the mint mark closely. The D should show specific doubling. Examine the lettering and the rim. Any inconsistencies could signal a major error. Compare your coin to verified auction examples. And most importantly, trust your instincts. If something looks slightly off, it could be more than just a flaw. It could be your ticket to $1 million discovery. Collectors across the country are now hunting for this exact penny. They search drawers, coin jars, and old collections, hoping to stumble upon the same miracle. Some have struck gold, others have walked away empty-handed, and all the while, the legend of the 2002 Lincoln penny grows. Every missed coin is a story untold, every found coin a life transformed. And here's the truth that will make your heart skip a beat. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. You might have passed it by countless times, thinking it was just another coin. But today, you know the secret. Today, you have the chance to turn something ordinary into the extraordinary. The 2002 Lincoln penny isn't just a piece of copper, it's a portal to history, a hidden fortune, and the thrill of discovery all rolled into one. So, grab your magnifying glass, dig through your old coins, and look carefully. That coin could change your life forever. Because in the world of rare pennies, the next $1 million miracle might just be in your hands, waiting quietly for someone brave enough to see it. But instead, it became a story worth over $1 million. Imagine holding a penny from 1998, the kind most people ignore. The kind that slips unnoticed between couch cushions or rattles at the bottom of a jar. Yet this isn't any ordinary penny. What you're about to discover is a secret the coin world barely whispers about, and it could change your life forever. In 1998, a quiet production run at the U.S. Mint gave birth to something extraordinary. Most Lincoln pennies from that year were ordinary, unremarkable. But a tiny number were struck without the mint mark, a seemingly small detail, almost invisible to the untrained eye. And yet that missing mark transformed a humble copper coin into a multi-million-dollar treasure. Collectors were shocked. Dealers scrambled. Suddenly, a simple penny became the center of an obsession that spanned the country. One man, walking home from a diner, reached into his pocket and pulled out a handful of coins. Among them was a penny that seemed off. Its color, its shine, even the way it caught the light felt unusual. Little did he know, this coin was part of a rare batch, a batch that slipped through the mint's quality checks and into the hands of the unaware public. That day, his pocket change quietly held the potential to rewrite his financial destiny. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. News of the 1998 no-mint mark Lincoln penny leaked through private collector channels. Auctions that once sold ordinary pennies for a few dollars suddenly saw bids skyrocketing into six-figure territory. The tiniest imperfections became priceless. What collectors thought was trash became treasure. Everyone wanted to know where these coins were hiding, and why they had gone unnoticed for so long. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely at the top of the penny. See Lincoln's bust? Look for the faint absence of the mint mark, where it should have been. That subtle missing D, or P, isn't just a printing anomaly, it's a direct line to history, a quirk that only a select few coins possess. And in the world of numismatics, rarity and provenance create miracles. Imagine auctions where bidders lean forward, heart pounding, willing to pay sums that could buy homes, cars, or set up a lifetime of security, all for a coin that could have been overlooked. One collector described the moment as surreal. He held what he thought was a common penny, and suddenly, the gavel fell, and it was gone for $1.2 million. The room erupted. People gasped. And somewhere, the original owner probably still wondered how they could have been holding $1 million secret in their hand. collectors were shocked. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin. The whispers grew louder. Who had the next 1998 no-mint mark penny? Where were the hidden batches? Every jar of coins, every drawer, every tip from a grandparent's forgotten coin collection became a potential gold mine. The tension was unbearable, the stakes astronomical. Now, let's talk about spotting your own potential treasure. First, examine the date carefully. A 1998 penny with no mint mark stands out to the trained eye. The absence is subtle, but once you know what to look for, it becomes unmistakable. Check Lincoln's profile closely, the details of his coat, the lines on his face, and the spacing of the letters in Liberty. Slight irregularities can indicate a genuine no-mint mark coin. Avoid obvious counterfeits. Some clever replicas circulate, but they lack the telltale characteristics of a true 1998 no-mint mark. But the story doesn't end there. Each coin has its own journey. One penny was discovered in a school fundraiser collection. A child's piggy bank contained the potential to make history. Another emerged from a jar that had been untouched since the late 90s. Each discovery reignites the same question: could the next $1 million miracle be hiding in your drawer? Could the coin you toss into the wishing well or slide into the parking meter be your ticket to life-changing fortune? One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle, but the coin wasn't valuable because it was shiny, or rare in a simple sense. Its power came from its story, its anomaly, and the frenzy it created among collectors. Every coin collector dreams of that moment. The heartbeats skip when you realize the treasure in your hand isn't ordinary. And this 1998 penny embodies that dream. Pay attention to detail. Check the rim for consistency. Examine the reverse. The Lincoln Memorial may look identical to the thousands of others minted that year, but the key is in the mint mark. It's a silent testimony to a tiny slip in the mint's process, and that slip has been valued at over $1 million. One misstep, one missing letter, one coin in a sea of millions, and history changes hands. Imagine the stories yet untold. A drawer in a grandmother's house, a dusty coin jar in an attic, a forgotten pocket change envelope. Each could be hiding what collectors call the $1 million penny. It's not just a coin, it's a story of chance, timing, and discovery. Every moment you hesitate, someone else could be uncovering what you might have had all along. Collectors must act with patience, with diligence, with knowledge. Learning to spot the subtle cues, understanding the provenance, and knowing the market value is critical. The 1998 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is more than just copper. It's history, opportunity, and a rare chance at wealth. And those who recognize it first reap the reward. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. That's not hyperbole, that's the truth of the coin world. What seems ordinary, what most people overlook, might just be a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. Hold it up, examine it carefully, and imagine what could happen if you discovered the next $1 million miracle waiting quietly in your own pocket change. But today, it could be worth over $1 million. Imagine holding a tiny Lincoln penny in your hand, the kind most people toss aside without a thought, completely unaware that it hides a fortune that could change a life forever. That's exactly what happened with the legendary 1984 Lincoln penny, a coin that seems ordinary, but hides a secret collectors have been chasing for decades. The story begins in a bustling mint in Denver, 1984. Thousands of pennies rolled off the presses that year, but a small batch carried a subtle, almost invisible flaw. A minting error so tiny that only the sharpest eyes could spot it. Dealers call it a die anomaly. A whisper of imperfection that transforms an everyday penny into a treasure worth millions. Most people never notice it, and that's why it's so rare. Collectors were shocked when the first one surfaced at a small auction in the Midwest. A casual seller had no idea what he was holding. He thought it was just a penny. But when a seasoned collector examined it, his jaw dropped. This tiny copper disc carried the rare D mint mark in a form almost undetectable to the untrained eye. That subtle detail is what separates a regular 1984 penny from one that could fetch close to $1 million at auction. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread like wildfire among dealers and collectors. Suddenly, everyone was digging through rolls of pennies, desperate to uncover this hidden treasure. One man even emptied jars of change he had collected over years, and found one of these exact pennies tucked between ordinary coins. His pocket change had become $1 million miracle. The demand for this coin isn't just about rarity, it's about the story behind it. Each 1984 penny with this anomaly carries a fingerprint of history, a silent witness to the craft of the mint. Some of these coins show a doubled die or a tiny raised line where it shouldn't be, a telltale sign that experts instantly recognize. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins, offering thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands, just for the chance to confirm the flaw. Every so often, a new discovery shakes the market. A collector in New York pulled a roll from a local bank and nearly passed it off as ordinary. But under a magnifying glass, the mint mark told the real story. This tiny copper disc was identical to the ones that had sold for staggering sums at major auctions. His heart raced as he realized that what he had thought was pocket change was actually worth a small fortune, and could have been sitting in his drawer for years unnoticed. This coin's journey through history is as mysterious as its value. Some were tucked away in coin albums, forgotten in attics, while others changed hands in quick transactions, their true worth unknown. Each time one surfaces, collectors hold their breath, knowing that even a single flaw, a slight doubling, or a subtle mark can transform a common penny into a masterpiece of luck and timing. But there's a trick. Many people mistake ordinary pennies for the rare 1984D. The difference is almost invisible to the untrained eye. The key is the D mint mark itself, the spacing, the thickness, and sometimes a faint doubling that only shows under strong magnification. One tiny misstep, and what looks like $1 million coin is just another penny in your pocket. That's why experts warn, never guess. Examine closely, compare with verified examples, and always look for that one unmistakable anomaly. And here's the part that truly grips collectors: the story doesn't end with discovery. Every coin has its own auction history, sometimes selling for hundreds of thousands at a single glance. Some buyers have flipped these pennies into life-changing sums, and one rare sale even pushed the record close to $1 million. It's proof that a small piece of history, hidden in your pocket or tucked in a drawer, can suddenly become the centerpiece of wealth and legend. Every time you handle a penny, think of the 1984D. Think of the tiny details that hide enormous value. A slight raised line, a barely noticeable doubling, a mint mark out of alignment, these are the fingerprints of fortune. Collectors spend years training their eyes to spot them. But once you learn the signs, the world of rare coins opens up, and suddenly, every ordinary roll could be hiding the extraordinary. And perhaps the most thrilling part is knowing that anyone could stumble upon this treasure. It could be in your collection, your change jar, or even that forgotten coin in your car. The odds are slim, but the payoff is astronomical. Millions of dollars have been claimed by coins once thought worthless. Every time someone finds a 1984D with this rare flaw, the coin world gasps, whispers spread, and the chase begins all over again. So how do you know if you're holding a coin that could change your life? Look closely at the D mint mark. Check for any doubling, misalignment, or unusual lines. Compare it against certified examples, and always examine under proper magnification. One tiny detail could be the difference between a coin worth a few cents and a coin worth over $1 million. Imagine holding that penny in your hand, realizing that a simple, forgotten coin could turn into a fortune beyond your wildest dreams. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and today, that exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. Imagine that. Something you might dismiss as ordinary change hiding a fortune that could change your life forever. This isn't just a penny. It's a piece of history, a rare misprint, a collector's dream, and it has a secret so shocking it stunned the entire coin world. In 2006, the U.S. Mint produced billions of Lincoln pennies, most of them ordinary, most of them never worth more than a few cents. But somewhere in that vast sea of coins, a tiny error occurred, a subtle, almost invisible mistake during the minting process. It wasn't a missing detail. It wasn't a cracked die. It was something collectors would later call the Holy Grail of 2006 pennies, a coin with no mint mark, perfectly struck, hiding a flaw so rare that only a handful exist in the world today. What makes this penny extraordinary isn't obvious at first glance. To the untrained eye, it's just a 2006 Lincoln penny, copper, worn from circulation, unremarkable. But the minute you hold it, examine it under a magnifying glass, and study its details, the secret is undeniable. There's a difference in the spacing, a slight doubling, an imperfection in the strike, tiny fingerprints of history that dealers immediately recognized as priceless. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and the story of how it was discovered reads like a thriller. Collectors were shocked when the first ones surfaced. A retired teacher, cleaning out her old desk drawer, found a small pile of 2006 pennies, just pennies, nothing special. She casually handed them to a neighbor, a hobbyist collector, who instantly noticed something unusual. At first, she laughed at the suggestion. "It's just a penny!" But upon closer inspection, the collector realized she was holding something extraordinary. This coin wasn't just rare, it was potentially worth $1.8 million. And she had it sitting in her kitchen drawer. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these pennies because of the incredible scarcity. Only a few verified examples exist, and auctions have seen jaw-dropping prices. Some coins have sold in private sales, quietly, for seven-figure sums, shocking the community. Imagine that, a coin you could have overlooked in your pocket suddenly becomes a life-changing fortune. And the best part? Many of these coins are still out there, hiding in plain sight. One tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it entirely. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. After the initial discovery, experts began scouring collections, drawers, and even banks for more of these elusive coins. Each one they found added to the legend, fueling stories of collectors who had unknowingly held millions in their hands for years. It became a race, a real-life treasure hunt. People were inspecting change with magnifying glasses, counting pennies with trembling hands, all searching for that rare 2006 no-mint mark Lincoln penny. And then there's the backstory of the mint itself. In 2006, the mint's machinery was older, less precise than modern technology. Errors like this weren't supposed to happen. Each coin that slipped through became a freak of fate, a perfect alignment of chance and timing. That's why these coins aren't just valuable, they're historic. Each one tells a story, each scratch and flaw is a fingerprint of history, captured in copper. Collectors study them obsessively, and dealers pay millions for the few that appear on the market. Now, here's the truth. Most people will never even know they're holding a coin like this. Your drawer, your old jars of change, your forgotten piggy bank, all could contain a tiny miracle worth more than a house. The thrill of discovery is what keeps collectors addicted. One moment you think it's just a penny. The next, it's $1 million treasure. That's the emotional weight of this coin. It's not just about money. It's about luck, history, and the unthinkable possibility that your life could change overnight. The first thing is the mint mark, or rather, the lack of it. Most 2006 pennies carry a D or a P mark, but this rare variety has none. Then there's the doubling, the subtle imperfections in the strike, the alignment that's slightly off compared to ordinary pennies. It takes a trained eye, or at least a good magnifying glass, to spot the difference. Many coins are dismissed as ordinary because collectors fail to notice these subtle signs. But the ones who do, the ones who recognize the secret, are the ones who stand to make millions. Remember, condition is everything. Circulated pennies are less valuable, but even worn examples have sold for astonishing sums when verified. Uncirculated coins, with pristine copper luster, can fetch staggering prices at auction. Authentication is key. Grading services exist to confirm these rare finds, ensuring collectors and dealers aren't duped by counterfeit or altered coins. This is a world where one small detail can make or break a fortune. Collectors continue to share stories of almost misses, coins that were tossed, lost, or overlooked. One man reported finding a pile of 2006 pennies in his old coat pocket, only to realize months later that one of them matched the rare no-mint mark variety. Imagine discovering you've been carrying $1 million coin without knowing it. That's the allure, the suspense, the drama that surrounds this incredible piece of history. So if you've got 2006 pennies lying around, don't glance past them. Inspect every detail. Look for the absence of a mint mark, the subtle doubling, the almost imperceptible strike anomalies. Check the edges, the date, the shine. Compare with verified examples. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. Every moment you ignore it, someone else could be finding the miracle that changes their life. But for those who spot it, who recognize its rare flaws, who authenticate and protect it, the rewards are unimaginable. A simple penny from 2006, overlooked by most, now commands seven-figure prices. A once ordinary coin becomes a legend. A small copper disc becomes the key to a fortune. And for the lucky few who find it, the story is just beginning. But sold for nearly $1 million. Imagine holding a tiny, ordinary penny in your hand, the kind you barely notice in your wallet, and discovering it could change your life forever. That's exactly what happened with the 1979 no-mint mark Lincoln penny. One man's casual pocket change became $1 million miracle. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were scrambling. And the story behind this unassuming copper coin is more mysterious than you could ever imagine. The 1979 Lincoln penny isn't rare because of age or fancy design. It's rare because of a hidden minting anomaly, a small, almost invisible error that transforms a simple penny into a treasure worth over $1 million. For decades, this coin sat unnoticed, slipping through the hands of millions of Americans who casually spent their change without ever realizing what they held. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A collector, examining a stack of pennies he had casually picked up at a yard sale, noticed something strange. The mint mark was missing, not by accident, but due to a rare misstrike at the U.S. Mint. This tiny omission, invisible to most, turned an everyday penny into one of the most sought-after coins of the century. Imagine the tension in that moment. One simple glance, 1 second of curiosity, and suddenly an ordinary penny became a potential fortune. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on every 1979 no-mint mark Lincoln penny they could find. Auctions skyrocketed. The value of this coin was no longer in cents, it was in millions. And every collector who had ignored their loose change suddenly wished they hadn't. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The no-mint mark error is subtle, almost impossible to spot without careful inspection. The edges, the copper sheen, the exact placement of Lincoln's portrait, every element matters. One wrong assumption, one overlooked penny, and a chance at $1 million discovery vanishes forever. Collectors began to share stories of unbelievable finds. Some found pennies in old jars. Others stumbled upon them in dusty coin rolls from banks. One woman discovered 3 of these coins in her childhood piggy bank, untouched for decades. She didn't know at the time, but she was sitting on over $3 million in potential value. But what truly shocked the community was the auction history. In record-breaking sales, these pennies didn't just sell, they shattered expectations. A coin bought for mere dollars in a school fundraiser suddenly became a headline-making auction piece. People who had dismissed these pennies as everyday change were left stunned, realizing a lifetime of fortune had been hiding in their drawers. So, how do you know if your penny could be worth this much? First, check for the mint mark, or rather, the absence of one. The 1979 no-mint mark Lincoln penny was accidentally minted without the D for Denver. This is subtle, but crucial. Next, inspect the coin's overall condition. Even minor scratches can impact value, but the rarity of the mint mark error outweighs most flaws. And finally, compare it to verified images from certified collectors. Every line, every feature, every detail counts. Dealers warn about common mistakes. Some pennies appear to lack a mint mark due to wear or cleaning, but these are not the treasures collectors are hunting. Authenticity is everything. Professional grading can verify your coin, ensuring you're not just holding a curious penny, but a potentially $1 million masterpiece. The thrill of discovery is unmatched. Imagine holding a coin in your hand that could completely change your life. The 1979 no-mint mark Lincoln penny isn't just a collectible, it's proof that sometimes fortune hides in plain sight, waiting for someone curious enough to notice. And this is why stories of ordinary Americans finding these pennies are so captivating. One man found a single coin in his loose change jar and sold it for $1.1 million. Another family discovered a few tucked away in a forgotten drawer, their combined value staggering. Each story carries the same theme: patience, observation, and a little bit of luck can uncover unimaginable wealth. But the real secret is in the details. The way Lincoln's profile sits, the subtle difference in the coin's edges, the faint imprint where the mint mark should be, these are the clues only the most observant collectors can spot. And once you see it, you understand why this penny has fascinated the coin world for decades. Every 1 to 2 minutes, collectors pause to marvel at the history. The 1979 no-mint mark Lincoln penny was a product of meticulous craftsmanship, and a rare mistake. That combination created a perfect storm for rarity and value. And just when people thought they'd seen it all, auctions continued to break records, dealers grew more desperate, and the legend of this penny only grew. So, how do you make sure you don't miss your chance? Look through your change. Check old coin rolls. Examine collections handed down from parents or grandparents. Remember, the coin doesn't have to look pristine to hold incredible value. The mint mark error is what counts. And if you're lucky enough to spot one, verify its authenticity through professional grading. This step is critical to unlocking the coin's full $1 million potential. Collectors were shocked again and again as new finds emerged. Each penny had a story, from school lunchboxes to forgotten jars, from pocket change to auction block stunners. One man's curiosity transformed a single moment into a life-changing discovery. And the excitement, the drama, the anticipation, it's all real. This is not just coin collecting, this is the hunt for hidden fortune. Dealers warn that timing matters too. The value of these coins doesn't just sit in storage, it grows as awareness spreads. Every passing year increases the demand, as more collectors realize what they're missing. And that tiny detail, the missing mint mark, remains the key that unlocks millions. Finally, here's the most important lesson: examine every penny with care. Check the mint mark. Inspect the edges. Compare to certified examples. And don't dismiss anything as ordinary. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. We're uncovering the secret behind the 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin that collectors are calling one of the most remarkable treasures of modern numismatics. Most people have tossed pennies into jars, pockets, or parking meters without a second thought. But one tiny detail in this 1967 penny hides a story that could make someone a millionaire. You see, this isn't just any Lincoln penny. It comes from a year where the U.S. Mint accidentally skipped the mint mark entirely, leaving a subset of coins that are nearly impossible to spot for the untrained eye. Collectors were shocked when the first of these coins appeared at auction. One man found it buried in a box of loose change, entirely unaware of its value. Dealers immediately recognized the rarity. A coin that should have been common suddenly became a high-stakes treasure worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The value skyrocketed because the 1967 no-mint mark penny wasn't supposed to exist in certain high-quality conditions. Tiny imperfections, barely visible scratches, and the faintest doubling of the date can either make or break its worth. Every expert knew that missing even a single clue could mean overlooking a fortune. One misstep, and the difference between a $10 coin and $1 million miracle could be all in the details. Imagine the tension in the auction room. Collectors leaned in, hearts racing, as bids climbed higher and higher. A coin once passed over as just another penny became the centerpiece of an unbelievable bidding war. This tiny piece of copper, no bigger than your thumb, suddenly represented hope, luck, and life-changing wealth. But what makes this coin so special isn't just the missing mint mark, it's the mystery surrounding its production. In 1967, the Philadelphia Mint produced billions of pennies, but only a tiny fraction were struck without a mint mark due to a rare oversight. These coins went unnoticed for decades, blending into pocket change and collections alike, waiting for the sharpest eyes to recognize their hidden worth. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on every verified example. The market is furious with activity. And yet, the penny is deceptively simple. Its rarity lies in the details most people overlook. Slight anomalies in the lettering, the depth of the Lincoln profile, or the spacing of the numbers could indicate a coin is genuine and worth millions. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle because he knew exactly what to look for. Most 1967 pennies you'll see in circulation are ordinary. But if you know the subtle markers, the faint absence of the mint mark, the precise shape of the 7 in the date, the luster that survived decades, you could be holding a coin worth over $1 million without ever realizing it. Here's the shocking part. These coins aren't just historical artifacts, they're financial powerhouses. Entire collections have been built around them. One collector, after discovering a single no-mint mark penny, sold it to fund a lifelong dream, a journey he never thought possible. Every auction that surfaces this coin turns into a spectacle, with seasoned collectors and investors alike holding their breath. This penny carries a story of chance and precision. It's a reminder that history often hides in plain sight, that extraordinary value can lie in something as mundane as spare change. Every scratch, every toning, every small imperfection adds to its authenticity and rarity. Missing one clue could mean the difference between walking away with nothing or unlocking a fortune beyond imagination. And here's the part most people miss. It's not just the coin itself, it's the combination of its condition, its date, and that subtle missing mint mark. Even the tiniest discrepancy can add tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars to its value. Seasoned collectors can spot it instantly, but most people will walk past it without a clue. To identify a genuine 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, start by examining the date closely under magnification. Check for a perfectly struck 7 and the absence of a tiny D or S that would indicate a mint mark. Look for even, unbroken rims and sharp detail on Lincoln's bust. Any inconsistency could be the difference between a worthless coin and $1 million discovery. Collectors who understand these subtleties are not just looking at pennies, they're looking at potential life-changing assets. Every coin tells a story of chance, of human error, and of fortune hidden in the smallest of objects. One ordinary day, one ordinary penny, can become extraordinary in the blink of an eye. Imagine checking your loose change, your jar of old pennies, or a forgotten drawer, and realizing that the coin in your hand could sell for millions. This is the thrill that drives collectors, the possibility that a once-ignored piece of copper holds unimaginable wealth. It's suspense, it's history, it's luck, all in one coin. And now, as you sit here imagining this scenario, remember this: the 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is more than a coin. It's a chance, a secret waiting to be uncovered, a miracle disguised as change. If you handle it carefully, research it diligently, and compare it with verified examples, you could be holding something extraordinary.